Well, good day, everyone, and thank you for coming back to the next video. Because I want to go over something that I talked about a year ago, and I think I wasn't able to do my math correctly when it came to counting the years. Um, there was a Bible study I did about the fig tree that I did last year, and I failed to count the years correctly. And I think I got that squared away. But before I do that, I want to go back to a couple things. The recent video I did, "The Sun of Righteousness Will Light Up the Sky." Um, when I got done doing this video, a couple people quoted or reminded me about something about Jericho, the Battle of Jericho, and I just completely missed it. And the point of this video was to speak about how there was a dream and a prophetic word from a pastor who passed away, who said that he was told that Jesus would circle the earth, orbit the earth 7 times on the day of the rapture. And I realized that sounds a lot like what happened at the Battle of Jericho, where Joshua and the Israelites marched around the Jericho 7 times on the seventh day, and they yelled and screamed and shouted, and the walls came tumbling down. And that's really what is being said here in this dream. And what I mean by that is, this is the document I had. I've updated this document from that dream. You guys can download it if you like. I put it up there. But you can see here, I've added to the conclusion. It says, Jesus will light up the sky and orbit the earth just like the sun does 7 times. I said, you can see this in other scriptures, Malachi, but then I added Joshua 6:15-17, where it speaks about how on the seventh day they rose early at the dawn, of the day, and they marched around the city 7 times on the seventh day, and then shouted, and the walls came tumbling down. So the fact that the walls fell down on the seventh day after they marched around it 7 times, when you go over to the book of Isaiah and you look at this very cryptic set of verses, and it literally says that when this light goes around the earth like the sun 7 times, okay, as the light of 7 days, right before that is the day when the towers fall. So we have the day when the towers fall versus the day when the walls fell for Joshua. So my thought here is, when this event goes down, all the skyscrapers in the buildings in all the big cities, they're all going to fall over on this day. Jesus is going to make such a showing on this day. It's going to be mind blowing when he's done with it. So anyway, I just wanted to add that in here. Another thing I just want to mention before, many years in the past, I've spoken about Hope for the Orphans, and they reached out to me years ago about their kitchen, and this is how all this got started. Now, some of my newer subs probably aren't aware, but we've been helping this orphanage out in Kenya for years. This was their kitchen years ago, and it's all been upgraded, and they built a new kitchen. You guys have, here's some pictures of it. They built a kitchen. We've done all sorts of things. Here's the kitchen going up. It's just not the completed pictures, but it was the kitchen. It was, yeah, we had electricity installed. You guys paid for that. We purchased a posho mill so they could convert raw corn kernels to flour. We helped get them a passenger van. Actually, it ended up being a car. They have a Honda car. I forget what. I think a Toyota Corolla. So there's been many things we've helped these guys out with. The last thing we've helped them out with was, was this. They're asking for if we could help out for a dining hall. Now, we already provided. They asked for some blankets and mattresses. We were able to provide money for that. So, guys, I just want to offer up, if you can, prayerfully request to help these guys out. And this is the way you can help donate to them. And I would really recommend, if anybody wants to help these folks out directly, to contact Joshua. Here's his email address, and you just interact with him directly. You guys can do that. He'd like to hear from you. Okay. So what did I do last year that was wrong? I couldn't count the years correctly. So before that, I want to go through a Bible study that I just posted. And I woke up this morning counting the years. Now, before I say counting the years or counting the days, Moses, we're going to go over this in a minute. Moses tells us to do that. He pleads with the Lord. So Psalm 90 is written by Moses. It's strange to think that a psalm was written by Moses, but sure enough, Psalm 90 is. But when you read Psalm 90, and I have it right here, it doesn't sound like to me what Moses would be saying back then. It really sounds like what we're saying right now. So I really feel like this was written on our behalf. It goes like this. For all of our days pass away under your wrath. We bring our years to an end like a sigh. The years of our life, or the generation, are 70, or even by reason of strength, 80 years. Yet their span is but toil and toil and trouble. They are soon gone and we fly away. Who considers the power of your anger, your wrath, according to the fear of you? So teach us to number our days, that we may get the heart of wisdom. Return, O Lord, how long? Have pity on your servants. Okay, so you can see here that Moses is pleading with the Lord to teach us to understand the times, to count our days. So let's go and do that. That's what I've been doing here. I've been thinking about this. So Jesus gives us a couple clues. He speaks about signs. There'll be sign in the sun and the moon and the stars. He speaks about this in Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21. In Luke 21, he speaks about signs that are up in the sky that are so fearful that people will be fainting. Now, obviously, we haven't had that happen yet. So maybe we're there, maybe we're not. Let's see what else Jesus. He also talks about a sign from the fig tree, or learn the lesson. So Matthew 24, verse 32. From the fig tree, learn its lesson. As soon as its branches become tender and sprout leaves, you will know that summer is near. So also, when you see these things, you know that it is near at the very gates. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these take place. And that's sort of what is said over here. This is a different Bible study, but he's talking about this generation will not pass away. Moses, Psalm 90, for all of our days pass away under your wrath. So I just see the connection there of those two. Okay, so this is a lesson that Jesus wants us to know. So let's dig into it and let's see if we can make some sense of it. So prophetically, everybody knows the fig tree represents Israel. Who does the fig tree represent prophetically in the Bible? And here in Hosea, like grapes in the wilderness, I found Israel. Like the first fruit on a fig tree in its first season, I saw your fathers. Okay, so there was actually 2 fig trees that Jesus cursed in the New Testament. And I have a Bible study that actually shows that those 2 fig tree cursing events, there's actually 2 of them. There's 2 curses. There was 2 trees he cursed because there's 2 houses of Israel. Now, I have a Bible study. I'll leave a link to that, and you guys can take a look at that. Okay, so how long is a generation? Well, Moses tells us it's 70, or it could be 80 if you go through toil and tribulation. So it seems like the people who go through 80 are going to have some problems. Maybe the people who go through 70 won't. We'll see that. Okay, so let's restate Matthew 20. Let me jump to, let me jump to Matthew 24 here. Let me read Matthew 24 again, and I'll add in the commentary here from what we've learned from reading this. Truly I say to you, this fig tree generation of 70 years will not pass away until all these things take place. So we know in Matthew 21, Jesus did curse the fig tree. The Matthew version of this is Jesus cursing the Judah tree. My Bible study will show that. And seeing the fig tree by the wayside, he went to it and found nothing on it but leaves, and said to it, may no fruit ever come from you again. And the fig tree withered at once. And then in Jeremiah, there's this reference to God looking for fruit. And we're going to see that here in the parable of the barren fig tree. So in Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 13, the prophet writes, he's speaking for God, when I would gather them, declares the Lord, there are no figs on the fig tree. Even the leaves are withered, and what I've gave them has passed away from them. It almost sounds like Jeremiah 8 goes hand in hand with Matthew 24. Well, it's all the same book, written by all the same, the author, the Holy Spirit, inspired all of it. So the question is, did Jesus tell of a parable about a fig tree and God himself, the landowner, coming to gather fruit and judge it, just as it says in Jeremiah 8? So we can learn that the parable that Jesus is telling us here is actually referring to an unfulfilled prophecy from Jeremiah. So we can take the parable from Jesus and say, yes, this does have true meaning for us. It is a fulfillment of a prophecy. But what Jesus does in this parable is he gives us more information. He gives us something to grab onto, to understand, and to help us count, teach us to count the days as Psalm 90 exhorts us to do. So the parable goes like this. And Jesus told this parable. A man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came seeking fruit on it and found none. Okay, so the man is God, the fig tree is Israel, and the Lord came seeking a fig tree and did not find any fruit on it. He said to the vine dresser, who was Jesus, look, for 3 years now I've come seeking fruit on this fig tree and found none. Cut it down. Why should it use up the ground? And then Jesus, in his mercy, answered him, Sir, let it alone this year, until I dig around it and put on manure. Then if it should bear fruit next year, well and good. But if not, you can cut it down. Notice how the Father is going to cut it down. So this is where we have to get a little inquisitive here and ask some questions based on history. Now, I'll be honest, I'm a little surprised. I've asked some folks through the years, Christians and stuff like that, even a couple pastors over the years about, Israel, the Jewish state of Israel. One pastor I asked, who was very biblically astute, he didn't even recognize the fact that the Jewish state of Israel went away and we didn't have a Jewish state. So like during the Reformation, Martin Luther, he would read the Bible, and all those guys would read the Bible back then, and they would get very confused when they couldn't figure out biblical prophecy, because they kept referring to Israel and the house of Judah, and it just didn't make any sense to them. So a lot of these guys, they decided to come up with a new theology, a new theory about replacement theology. Well, lo and behold, in the spring of 1948, the Jewish state of Israel was reborn. So the question is, when did the fig tree, Israel, sprout leaves? Well, the answer is spring of 1948. Late in the evening, 4:30 on May 14th, 1948. This tree had been dead since 30 A.D. The fig tree, because Jesus, around 30 A.D., maybe 28. Many are not aware of this and just think the Jewish state has always been there. So what we have today is what Jesus had back then. We had a couple thousand years in between where there was no Jewish state. Okay? So the next question is, when is fig tree fruit harvested? Well, it's harvested in the fall. So let's speculate now. When are the years of this generation to be over then? Well, if we just take simple math, 1948 plus 70 years, the fig tree generation is complete in 2018. So when God will come looking for this fruit on the fig tree, how many years will he give them to produce fruit? Well, he says up here, 3 years. So let's just do some speculative math. So in the parable from Luke 13, the landowner, God, looked for 3 full years. And if we add these 3 full years to the fall of 2018, we go to the fall, because that's when fig tree fruit is ripe. Now, there are early figs that are there in the spring, but they are from the previous year's harvest that did not fall off. And those figs grow big and fat. And sometimes they don't taste very good. They're called winter fruit. Okay, so adding these 3 full years to the fall of 2018, this is where I screwed up. Last time, when I did this last year, I was saying, hey, the fall of 2018, that's year 1. Well, that's the beginning of year 1. So you have to go from the fall of 2018, you add 3 years, to the fall of 2021. That encompasses 3 full years. So now it's time to cut the fig tree down. But Jesus steps in his mercy and says, hold on a minute. I have a different plan. Let my plan work out first, he says to the landowner. So what did Jesus do? The vine dresser, what was his request? He requested 1 additional year to apply fertilizer, manure, to assist the fig tree in producing fruit. Therefore, the year of the manure, the fertilizer, is from the fall of 2021 to the fall of 2022. This would be the 4th year after 2018. So the whole point of what Jesus speaks about as laborers in the fields, laborers in the vineyard, he's all about calling his faithful bride, not just to be raptured out of here. He keeps talking about this harvest thing. It's all about, the harvest and working the vineyard. He's got parables about vineyards and gathering workers and paying them money. Okay? So the manure represents, I would say, spiritually infused and physically enhanced harvesting bride that's going to work this harvest. So I would say these are they who will be sent out ahead of him to prepare the way, just as Jesus describes in Luke 10. He says the manure will prepare the many, remember the harvest is plentiful, to meet their Lord by working the revival, by turning the hearts of the fathers to the sons and vice versa. That's Malachi 4. So here's an archetype pattern that Jesus gave us at his first coming. He said the Lord appointed, this is Luke 10, the Lord appointed 72 others, some translations say 70 pairs, and sent them on ahead of him, just like John the Baptist was sent 6 months ahead of Jesus. John, it's speculated that he began to baptize out in the wilderness at the River Jordan about 6 months before Jesus started his earthly ministry, his public ministry, on that Passover, where he took that cat of 9 tails and cleansed the temple at the beginning of his ministry. And then a little while later, he did the same thing at the end of the ministry. Okay, so here we go. So the Lord appointed these guys to send them out 2 by 2 and to go into every town and place where he, Jesus himself, was about to go. And he said to them, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. The laborers are the many are called, few are chosen. I've talked about this many times. In the parable of the wedding banquet, the great wedding banquet, Jesus concludes with this incredibly confusing statement. For many are called, but few are chosen. And most people, you go to the commentaries and the guys with PhDs and the seminary guys and the scholars, they all say, oh, that's some type of doctrinal teaching on predestination or salvation or election. It's not. Many are called, but few are chosen. They're chosen to be laborers in the end time harvest of the many. So therefore, that continues on here. Therefore, pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out his laborers into the harvest. I put of the fig tree fruit. So what will these harvest workers be doing? Well, Jesus says these crazy things in John 14. They're not crazy. They're just impossible to believe, that have never been fulfilled ever. Jesus says that his faithful followers, those who fear him, will do greater things than these. Whatever he did, raise the dead, heal the sick, cast out demons. So when Jesus sent out his disciples the first time he came, he's going to do it the second time. He says, go and proclaim the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. Okay, so here is my poor man's sketch of what I'm trying to show here. You can see Psalm 90. The years are 70 a generation. The fig tree generation, the spring of 1948 to the spring of 2018. Mark says the same thing. And since the fig trees ripened in the fall, we got to start counting from the fall. We go 3 full years till we get to the spring of 2021. Now, this is just speculation, making an honest attempt to do what Jesus says, and that is to learn and know this lesson from the fig tree. This is not a thus saith the Lord anything. It's just using his words to understand this stuff. Okay, so that's where we are, right here. Now, this 1 year that's here, I've done other videos where I've talked about this 1 year. People want to argue, well, no, there's 3.5 and there's 7. There is. However, there's many other Bible scriptures that speak about the year of the Lord's favor. This is a Bible study. You guys can download this. And in here, there are 6 references to a 1 year time frame that I would say has gone unlooked, has gone ignored by many folks over the years. I kept seeing it. And I'm going to go through them real quickly. So there's 6 references to a 1 year time frame. In Isaiah 32, the lukewarm church is going to get a 1 year warning. Actually, it's a year and a few days. Maybe like a year and 10 days, like Noah was in the ark, a year and 10 days. So after, and it says here that the princes, I say the 144,000, they're going to rise up. They're going to say, rise up, you women, who are at ease. Hear my voice, you complacent daughters. Give ear to my speech. In a little more than a year, you will shudder, you complacent women. For the grape harvest fails, the fruit harvest will not come, until a Holy Spirit is poured out from us on high. The wilderness will become a fruitful field. So this woman is sent out into the wilderness after a 1 year warning. Do we know about a woman going into the wilderness? Well, that's right. Yeah, that's Revelation 12:6. The fruitful field is deemed a forest. Then justice will dwell in the wilderness. See, this is the Old Testament. The word wilderness is used. There's a woman in there. Woman and wilderness. Go in Revelation 12. A woman is thrust into the wilderness where she will be nourished for 1,260 days. During this 1 year period, she's going to get this warning here where they're going to prepare her. Also, during this 1 year period, there's going to be a harvest. I would speculate this woman is left behind. And then the prophet says, my people will abide in a peaceful habitation, in secure dwellings and quiet resting places. And it will hail when the forest falls down. So the trumpet judgments begin, and there's hail coming down. In Isaiah 34, we have a year of recompense. This is another confusing thing. This is where Jesus is going to come and create some serious havoc for the fallen angels. Draw near, O nations, to hear. Give attention, O peoples. All the host of heaven shall rot away. This is the fallen angels. And the skies shall roll up like a scroll. Well, where do we know the skies rolling up like a scroll? That's the 6th seal. All their host shall fail, as leaves fall from the vine, like leaves falling from a fig tree. My sword, that would be Jesus, has drunk its fill in the heavens. Behold, it descends for judgment on Edom. Now it's coming down to the earth to exert his judgment here. The Lord has a sword. It's sated with blood. It's gorged with fat. The Lord has a sacrifice at Basra, a great slaughter in the land of Edom. For the Lord has a day of vengeance, a year of recompense. This is all before the 7 years. We're going to see where does the Lord send all these people? He's going to be taking out his vengeance, his wrath, like it says at the 6th seal, because he's the one riding the horse at the 1st seal. So we go to Isaiah. Where is it? I don't have Isaiah 24 in here, guys. Isaiah 24 says that they're all going to be sent to the pit of hell, these guys. Okay. A year for the redeemed, a year for the recompense. So the redeemed, well, who are the redeemed? So, for the day of vengeance was in my heart. The year of recompense is to come. See, Isaiah 63 is where there should be red text in the Old Testament. But the people who, translate our Bibles, they don't recognize this. So Isaiah 63 is Jesus himself speaking. I've gone over this many times. Somebody asked, said, who is this that comes from Edom in crimsoned garments from Basra? He is splendid in his apparel, marching in greatness in his strength. And Jesus says, it is I, speaking in righteousness, mighty to save. And they ask him, why is your apparel red, your garments like one who treads the winepress? And Jesus himself says, I have trodden the winepress alone. From the peoples there was no one with me. I trod them in my anger. I trampled them in my wrath. Their lifeblood spattered on my garments. All stained my apparel. For the day of vengeance was in my heart, and the year of the redeemed is come. The year of the redeemed are the 144,000. We know about this. They are redeemed from mankind as first fruits. So how do we know this is before the 7 years? Well, because it occurs at the sixth seal, when the Lord is on a rampage, exerting his wrath. So we see that Isaiah 63, right? A day of vengeance is in my heart. We see the same thing in Isaiah 34, for the Lord has a day of vengeance, when the skies roll up like a scroll. That's the sixth seal. That's how we know what's going on here. Okay. Isaiah 61 is the same thing. We know about Isaiah 61 from Jesus' first coming, right? We know that he read Isaiah 61 in Luke chapter 4. And remember, all the eyes of the synagogue were on him, and they wanted to throw him over a cliff when they got done. Well, Jesus stopped. He says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those who are bound, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And he stopped. He rolled up the scroll. Does that sound familiar? Rolling up the scroll. And he stopped right here. I think it was 27 AD at his first coming. Now, when he restarts his second coming, which I think is now, what's the first thing he's going to do? He's going to pick up where he left off. And the day of the vengeance of our God, that same day of the vengeance we hear about up in Isaiah 63 and Isaiah 34. See, we learn so much when we read the Old Testament. I have friends that read the New Testament, Revelation, and they build their entire paradigm of everything about what's going to happen from reading that book, and they lose all the backstory. So they build their theory on nothingness, man's thoughts, when in the Old Testament you have all this information to tell us how it's going to play out. Okay, so Isaiah 61. So look what happens here. When he returns, immediately it's a day of vengeance for our God, and then he's going to be comforting those. To comfort those who mourn, and to grant those who mourn in the heavenly Mount Zion. Let me get rid of this right here. Yeah, I'm sorry, that could be. I think of that. Sorry, guys. Okay, so, Ash Wednesday's coming up in February here. The gladness instead of mourning. The garment of praise of a faint spirit. Okay, so then we get down to this, a year for the manure to fertilize. I'm going to keep going, guys. Okay, then we got second Baruch. Oh. All right, sorry. Okay. Okay, so let me jump back to. So we've looked at this from both ends. We used the 70 years and added the 3 to get to this time frame. But we can also go the other direction. We can use the 80 years for those who are going to go through toil in Jacob's trouble, toil and trouble. Those who are left here. And we can count back 7 years. We get to the same time. Now, I know this is like heresy to have things like this, rapture when we think we know what it is. Look, it's just in my opinion, it's I wouldn't say harmless speculation, but it's just looking at the facts and looking at what's going on, looking at what happened in history. When people don't even know what happened in 1948 and they read the words of Jesus, they set themselves up for not knowing what's going on and not knowing the times that we live in. Paul speaks about something in 1 Thessalonians 5. I always found it kind of interesting. He says, "Now concerning the times and the seasons, brothers, you have no need to have anything written to you." I look at that and I wonder, what does he mean by that? Is those who are watching will know the times and the seasons, that we just inherently will know the times and the seasons and we won't be caught unawares? Not sure, but that's my thought. So with that, guys, I think I am through with this. I've shown you backwards and forwards with the 80 and the 73. And, it's just looking at this as I did last year at the same time. I was struck not knowing what I was counting. With that, guys, I'll let you go. Have a great day, and God bless you.